I think this will be a shorter one today, but we'll see. I was kind of just cruising around the interwebs today and reading different things, thinking about a few things. And in the case that you see something on the internet you don't like, whose responsibility is it to clear that up or dig deeper? Maybe you see a piece of information clip. Maybe somebody's trying to share a fact or just a particular insight, and you don't like the thing. Maybe you don't believe it, or maybe you think it's half truth, half of the truth. Whose responsibility is it to clear that up? Is it yours? Is it theirs? I saw some funny things going on the internet around that. I mean, social media is a hotbed for that kind of silliness, but the way I think about it is, imagine you're reading a book, and perhaps in the book the author cited some detail, fact, and you didn't believe it. And maybe you just send the author a letter and say, hey, author, I don't believe that, I don't believe this fact. Just wanted to give you a heads up that I don't think it's true. Now, maybe the author has researched it thoroughly or knows the intent in which they were using it. And what do you do when you're annoyed by that piece of information as the reader? Does the book get banned? Do you throw it away? Should the author have to redact that just because you don't like it or don't agree with it? Isn't it on you, the reader, to go out and research and maybe read another book on that topic or look into that specific topic? I don't know. I think that's an interesting one. I saw somebody on the internet posted something and it was construed a certain way, and then got a lot of feedback that, shared that it wasn't meant to be construed that way, and then got a lot of feedback that it was still on this person to take it down. That was so interesting. Like, if someone gives you the explanation, why do they have to go take it down? Just makes you uncomfortable, makes you mad. Got me thinking about some really great advice that was shared with me once. And that advice was, it's not your job to be the emotional custodian of other people. I really like that phrase, emotional custodian. And at first glance, I think this is something that sounds a little bit harsh, maybe even apathetic. But instead, I think it's in a lot of ways the opposite of that. It's not your job to be somebody else's emotional custodian. I don't think this means that you move through the world and you're constantly impolite or aggressive or violent, always trying to, you're always on the attack, and you attack and then somebody gets upset or hurt and you just turn around and say, well, I'm not your emotional custodian. This is all on you. I don't think that's the advice. I think it's more of, I love the term custodian. It's not our job to go and sweep up other people's emotional messes. And it's really on others to, identify and analyze what is going on with themselves emotionally. Get their own house in order, for lack of a better analogy. Keep the cleaning analogies going. But I just thought that it's such an interesting thing to think about, especially when it seems like all of us exist, at least in the space of the internet and social media, for the purpose of having others or instigating others to clean up our own emotional messes. Or as some advice my friend shared with me recently, said, stable people are far and few between. Now, without even talking about who is, responsible, who is the onus on, I don't want to be somebody who goes around and, even contemplates creating a lot of emotional mess for others. At the same time, I do think it's really important, thinking about how I want to conduct myself, is always trying to take, what I feel like is accountability, and that I have some options, even when I see something, read something, hear something I don't like, maybe even feel something I don't like. I can go look for other information to either confirm or deny what's going on. I can remove myself from the situation altogether. I could just maybe pause and take a breath and sit in it, feel it. Maybe my initial reaction was incorrect. And, even though I don't like something that's being said, it might actually be the case, the way things are, which I do think is also a really interesting one. When you run into people who will look at something not being the truth or the actual case just because that person doesn't like it. Well, I don't like it, so it can't be true. Which I think is a pretty wild way, maybe to each their own. Don't want to yuck your yum. Pretty wild way to go about living your life, but I would have to imagine there's somebody out there feeling that way. It's also one of those things where, we've talked about before, this idea of like, what is it you feed, your psychological, emotional diet? What does that look like? And it's fun. I'm a huge shit talker. I really like it. I like making ridiculous jokes to my friends. Any of them can tell you this is true. Today I was about to do a workout with a member at our gym, and I told this person, they were about to start and they were kind of procrastinating. I had just walked in. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Hey, what are you doing? Well, I'm going to do 50 hang power snatches, 50 push presses, 50 sumo deadlift high pulls, and 50 front squats for time, all at 65 pounds for ladies, 95 pounds for gents. And so I told the person, this person is an incredible baker. And at previous gym events, they've brought some things in. I think the most recent one, it was a Friendsgiving. They brought in sourdough dinner rolls, which were the best dinner rolls I've had on the planet, bar none. They were out of this world. And so I said, okay, I'll do this with you right now under one condition. If I win, you got to make me the sourdough dinner rolls. And then I even carried on to, if I beat you by more than 2 minutes, you got to sign up for the Open. I'm insane. And a lot of that is just good-hearted fun. I don't know. It's just goofy. I don't really mean anything negative by it. For me, it's that kind of stuff that makes the competing and the fitness fun. Maybe at times obnoxious, maybe always obnoxious, but it's certainly good-hearted, right? And so there's an edge to that. And the reason I bring this up is I'm trying to make a connection to when I see people on social media, like commenting or saying something inflammatory or edgy, or just sometimes downright mean and vile on somebody's account. And I always have this question of like, well, why do you follow that person? And the more I've been thumbing around on social media, the more I realize you're probably not following this account. You're just going through the algorithm, and it's showing up on like your whatever's new feed, your suggested feed. And you're seeing something and you're annoyed by it and you leave some nasty comment and the algorithm sees that you interacted with it and gives you more of that thing. I do wonder if the algorithm looks at like the tone, if it tries to read into the tone of the sentiment of your comment. Because I know that there is like that little dopamine hit of interacting and leaving a comment, seeing anybody liked it and feeling proud you said something mean and aggressive to somebody, or you set them straight on the internet. But would it be so freaking bad, algorithm, if you could tell if somebody was saying a bunch of negative comments, you stopped feeding them that content and fed them only content where they left positive comments? I know I'm being like insanely kumbaya here, but would it be that freaking bad? You'd still get the nice little dopamine hit and you'd see some content that you actually like. Bunch of videos of dogs sprinting through the woods. Awesome. Agility dogs. People building life-size nonsense out of Legos, leaving positive comments. It'd be cool if the algorithm did that. Maybe it does. And we're all just inherently wired negatively. But anyway, back to the topic. Why do you watch all that stuff? If you're leaving negative comments, if you're annoyed by something, if you're like going out of your way to like set somebody straight, that's one of my favorite. I'm going to set this person straight. Anyone who says I'm going to set this person straight themselves is way off track. They need the most straight setting. Like why are you digesting that? Why is that the content you're consuming, the content that you want to interact with most negatively? But I think it's interesting sometimes when I see people reach out to other people, especially on the internet, people who don't know each other that well, and basically say like, I don't like what you said, so you need to make me feel better. Man, that's a slippery slope. It's an interesting one. Because if you do go around being everyone else's emotional custodian, I don't know where that leads. Like I said, I'm not saying around just go be a giant asshole. That's not what I'm saying. But yeah, it's not your job to do that. And I think it's important to try to avoid being someone who's out there wanting for emotional custodians. Anyway, more rambly than I thought. Got to 10 minutes. Gonna cut it off there. This is gonna be an emotional custodian part 1, because I think I want to come around to this topic and talk about it again soon. But that was the workout I did today. So it was awesome. And more tomorrow.